The biggest betrayal of my life came from my own brother. I needed emergency surgery, and I thought he would be there for me. When I asked for help, he refused, prioritizing money over my life. His selfishness broke my heart, and I had to arrange the operation myself. Facing fear and pain, I stayed courageous and determined to survive. People around me supported me, but my brother remained distant and cold. After the surgery, I slowly recovered, but the betrayal stayed in my mind. What I did over the next 3 days didn't just expose him. It dismantled him completely. And he never saw it coming, because he forgot one very important thing about me. Before I tell you how this started, take a second to like and subscribe, but only if stories about quiet betrayal and earned consequences resonate with you. Now let me take you back 6 months before the accident. Back to the week my mother died. I grew up in Akron, Ohio. 2 kids. 1 mother. No father in the picture. It was always just me and Daniel. Daniel was 5 years older, protective when we were young, controlling when we were older. The shift was subtle at first. After our dad left, Daniel decided he was the man of the house. My mother never corrected him. When I was 12, he picked my friends. At 15, he screened my phone calls. At 17, he decided which college I should apply to. "You don't always make smart decisions, Lauren," he'd say. "Somebody has to." It sounded like concern. It wasn't. It was control dressed up as responsibility. Still, I loved him. That's the part people don't understand when they hear stories like this. You can love someone and still be slowly erased by them. Our mother, Denise Mitchell, worked double shifts at a diner for 27 years. She never owned a house. She rented the same 2-bedroom duplex until the week she died. When she was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer, Daniel took over everything immediately. Doctor appointments, paperwork, bills. "Mom doesn't need stress," he told me. "Let me handle it." He put himself on her bank account for convenience. He redirected her mail to his condo, so nothing got lost. At the time, it felt efficient. Responsible. It wasn't. 3 weeks before she passed, Mom asked me something strange. We were sitting in her hospital room late, machines humming softly. She grabbed my wrist and said, "If anything happens to me, make sure you talk to Mr. Alvarez." "Who's Mr. Alvarez?" I asked. She smiled weakly. "You'll know." I thought it was medication confusion. Daniel said the same thing when I told him. "She's not thinking clearly," he said. "Don't start chasing ghosts." She died on a Monday morning in February. Daniel handled the funeral. Small. Closed casket. Fast. He didn't let me speak. "Keep it simple," he said. Mom hated attention. That wasn't true. Mom loved stories. She loved when people talked about her. But I stood in the second row and stayed quiet. I always stayed quiet. After the funeral, Daniel told me something else. There wasn't much left, he said. Medical bills wiped most of it out. I nodded. I didn't question him. I should have. But Daniel had always been the one with spreadsheets, with folders, with explanations. He was the responsible one, the one who made decisions. And I was the one who trusted him. 6 months later, I was driving home from a late shift at Mercy General. It was 11:18 p.m. Light rain. Empty road. A semi-truck drifted into my lane. I don't remember the impact. I don't remember the ambulance. I'm told I was conscious for less than a minute. Long enough to say my name. Then nothing. Internal bleeding. Ruptured spleen. Severe abdominal trauma. The surgical team needed to operate immediately. But because I wasn't married and had no designated medical proxy on file, the hospital called my listed emergency contact, Daniel Mitchell. He arrived at 8:57 p.m. Security footage confirmed it later. He didn't go to the ICU first. He went to billing. He asked one question. How much? The estimate was between $140,000 and $190,000, depending on complications. Insurance would cover a portion, but not all. Daniel hesitated. Then, he said something the charge nurse would later repeat to me word for word. She's always been reckless with money. I'm not approving something that'll bury us. The surgeon explained the urgency. Without surgery, I would likely die within hours. Daniel folded his arms. What are the odds she survives? High, the surgeon said. If we operate now. Daniel exhaled. Then let's wait. Stabilize her. No surgery yet, the doctor clarified. Sir, waiting isn't an option. Daniel looked at the consent tablet. Then he pushed it back across the counter. I'm not authorizing it. That should have been the end. It wasn't, because someone else stepped in. And that someone would change everything. The person who stepped in wasn't family. It wasn't a cousin. It wasn't a neighbor. It wasn't anyone Daniel would have considered important. It was a woman named Elise Harper. Elise was the senior trauma coordinator on duty that night. 42 years old. 20 years in emergency medicine. The kind of nurse who didn't raise her voice but didn't bend either. She had seen every version of human panic. And every version of human selfishness. When Daniel refused to authorize the surgery, Elise didn't argue. She asked one quiet question. Is there a healthcare proxy on file? The answer, initially, was no. But Elise didn't stop there. Because I worked at Mercy General. And employees have separate HR documentation, including emergency designations. Buried in my onboarding paperwork from 3 years earlier was a signed form naming someone else. Not Daniel. A woman named Rachel Kim. My best friend since college. Her number was listed clearly. Elise found it in under 4 minutes. She called at 9:31 p.m. Rachel picked up on the first ring. When Elise explained the situation, there was no hesitation. I'm coming, Rachel said. She drove 78 minutes in pouring rain. She walked into Mercy General at 10:48 p.m. with her ID and a copy of the proxy she had kept in her desk. She overrode Daniel's refusal. She authorized the surgery. The surgical team scrubbed in immediately. Daniel was already gone. He had left at 10:12 p.m. Elise documented everything. Every timestamp. Every refusal. Every sentence Daniel had said. She filed an internal ethics report before her shift ended. Daniel went home believing I would either die or stabilize without the procedure. He never called back that night. I opened my eyes 11 days later. White ceiling. Soft beeping. Pain radiating from my abdomen like fire wrapped in wire. The first face I saw was Rachel's. Not Daniel's. Not extended family. Rachel. Her hair pulled back. Dark circles under her eyes. She had been there every day. You're okay, she said, squeezing my hand. Her voice broke on the second word. How long? I whispered. 11 days. I tried to swallow. Failed. Daniel? Rachel hesitated. He came once. Briefly. Of course he did. Daniel arrived that afternoon at 2:26 p.m. I remember because I checked later. He walked in with flowers. Yellow lilies. I'm allergic to lilies. He didn't know that. Or forgot. He stood beside my bed and put on the expression I had seen my entire life. Concern shaped carefully for an audience. You scared us, he said. The doctors weren't sure you would make it. He reached for my hand. I let him hold it, because I wanted to see if he would flinch. He didn't. I had to make some tough calls, he added. But everything worked out. Tough calls. I studied his face. The calmness. The calculation behind it. What do you mean? I asked. He looked briefly annoyed. Insurance stuff. Surgical timing. You don't need the details. Rachel was sitting in the corner. Silent. Watching. Daniel leaned closer. The bills are going to be intense, he said quietly. But I'll help manage them. Manage. That word again. Always manage. Always control. 2 days later, when I could sit upright without fainting, Elise came into my room. She closed the door. She pulled a chair beside my bed. Lauren, she said gently, there's something you need to know. I braced myself. She told me everything. The refusal. The estimate conversation. The wait and see. The billing department visit before the ICU. She quoted him precisely. She's always been reckless with money. I felt something inside me settle. Not break. Settle. Like a puzzle piece finally snapping into place. How am I alive? I asked. Elise found Rachel. Rachel said quietly from the window. I turned to Elise. Is it documented? Yes. Every word. Yes. I stared at the ceiling for a long time. Then I asked for my phone. 37 missed calls from Daniel. 9 voicemails. 4 texts. All variations of the same theme. Call me. We need to talk. This is complicated. I ignored them. Instead, I opened my contacts. And I typed a name I hadn't thought about since the hospital room with my mother. A name she had whispered. Mr. Alvarez. I didn't know his first name, but Rachel did. She had helped Mom once with tax paperwork. Carlos Alvarez, Rachel said. Estate attorney downtown. I found the number online. I called. He answered on the 3rd ring. Law offices of Carlos Alvarez. My name is Lauren Mitchell, I said. My mother, Denise Mitchell, told me to contact you if anything happened. Silence. Then, I've been trying to reach you for 5 months. I gripped the phone tighter. My brother said there wasn't much left. Another silence. Miss Mitchell, he said carefully, your mother left a will. Everything in my body went cold. I was told there was nothing, I said. That is not correct. He explained. 2 years before her diagnosis, my mother had quietly opened a small life insurance policy and a savings account Daniel didn't know about. She had also named me sole beneficiary. Not Daniel. She had worried about his spending habits, his investments, his unexplained withdrawals. The total wasn't millions, but it wasn't nothing.
$312,000.
I stared at the 4 line in my arm. And the paperwork? I asked. Filed properly, Alvarez said. But when I attempted to contact you after probate, someone claiming to be you stated you were relocating and didn't wish to pursue the inheritance. I closed my eyes. Daniel. He had intercepted it. He had lied. Is the account still intact? I asked. A pause.
No.
That single word echoed. What do you mean? Funds were transferred 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. The week of my accident. Transferred to whom? Daniel Mitchell. Under a durable power of attorney document signed in your name. I felt my heartbeat slow. I never signed a power of attorney. I suspected as much.
Forgery.
While I was unconscious, he hadn't just refused my surgery. He had positioned himself to benefit from my death. Do you want to press charges? Alvarez asked. Not yet, I said. I looked at Rachel. She was already understanding. First, I said slowly, I want to see how much he thinks he got away with. Alvarez exhaled softly. Your mother anticipated this possibility, he said. She left a letter for you. I swallowed. When can you come to the hospital? Tomorrow morning. 9 o'clock. I hung up. Rachel stepped closer. What are you going to do? She asked. I stared at the wall. 3 days, I said quietly. He wanted to save money. I looked back at her. He just forgot whose money it was. Carlos Alvarez arrived at exactly 8:57 a.m. Gray suit. Leather briefcase. The kind of presence that didn't rush because it didn't need to. Rachel stepped out to give us privacy. Alvarez placed a large envelope on the rolling tray beside my hospital bed. Before we go any further, he said calmly, I need to confirm something. Did you ever sign a durable power of attorney granting your brother authority over your financial decisions? No, I said without hesitation. Did you authorize anyone to represent you during your hospitalization?
No.
He nodded once. That's what I believed. He opened the envelope and removed 3 documents. The first was a copy of my mother's will. The second was the transfer record showing $312,000 moved into Daniel's investment account. The third made my stomach drop. A power of attorney document bearing my name. And a signature. My signature. Or, at least something meant to resemble it. I stared at it. The shape was close. But the pressure was wrong. The L looped too tightly. Daniel had practiced. He had taken his time. When was this filed? I asked. 3 days after surgery, Alvarez replied. While you were still unconscious. Rachel's voice came from the doorway. He thought you wouldn't wake up. I didn't answer. Because she was right. Alvarez continued. There's more. He slid a fourth document across. An emergency contact update form submitted to the hospital system. My listed proxy had been changed. From Rachel Kim to Daniel Mitchell. Submission timestamp, 7:42 p.m. 38 minutes before he refused the surgery. I felt something sharp move through my chest. He planned it, Rachel whispered.
Yes, he did.
Daniel didn't lose everything because of karma. He lost everything because he underestimated paperwork. Alvarez moved quickly. By noon that same day, he filed an emergency injunction to freeze Daniel's investment account. By 3 p.m., the bank had flagged the $312,000 transfer as potentially fraudulent. And by the next morning, Daniel's brokerage account was locked pending investigation. That wasn't the part that destroyed him. The real damage came from timing. Daniel had leveraged that $312,000 as collateral. He had used it to secure a high-risk commercial real estate deal. A deal closing in 48 hours. Without the collateral, the lender pulled out. When the lender pulled out, the seller backed out. When the seller backed out, Daniel's other investors panicked. And investors talk. By the end of day 2, 3 separate partners demanded their capital returned. Capital Daniel had already moved. By day 3, his primary account was overdrawn by $184,000. Margin calls triggered automatically. Assets liquidated at a loss. It cascaded fast. Faster than he ever expected. He showed up at my hospital room at 6:14 p.m. on the third day. No flowers this time. No performance. Just sweat at his temples and a tremor in his jaw. "What did you do?" he demanded. Rachel stood immediately. "You need to leave," she said. "I'm talking to my sister." "You forged her signature," Rachel replied evenly. His eyes flicked to me. Confusion first. Then calculation. Then fear. "Lauren," he said quickly, stepping closer. "This is a misunderstanding. I was protecting your assets." "By transferring them to yourself?" I asked quietly. He swallowed. "I was consolidating. For tax efficiency." "You changed my healthcare proxy." "That was temporary. You refused my surgery." His voice rose. "I was trying to buy time. You don't understand how much it costs to keep someone on a ventilator." There it was. Not denial. Just justification. "You thought I would die," I said. Silence. His shoulders dropped slightly. "I thought the odds weren't good. And if I did?" He didn't answer. Because we both knew. If I had died, the forged power of attorney would have quietly transitioned into a state authority. He would have controlled everything. My mother's money. My accounts. The narrative. He stepped back when security entered. Elise had called them. Of course she had. As they escorted him out, he said one last thing. "You're destroying both of us over paperwork." I looked at him steadily. "No," I said. "You did that." The criminal investigation began within the week.
Forgery. Fraud.
Financial exploitation of an incapacitated person. And because the inheritance was tied to a probated estate, federal wire fraud charges entered the picture. Daniel's assets were audited. Every transfer examined. Every investment reclassified. The deeper they looked, the uglier it became. He hadn't just taken my money. He had been moving funds between shell accounts for years. Small amounts. Just enough not to trigger alerts. Until greed accelerated him. 3 months later, I walked into a courtroom. Not as a victim. As a witness. Daniel didn't look at me. His attorney negotiated heavily. Restitution agreement. Asset forfeiture. Avoiding prison time in exchange for full cooperation. He lost the commercial properties. He lost the investment firm license he'd fought to build. He lost the house. The cars. The reputation. Everything leveraged on money that was never his. When the judge finalized the restitution order, I felt nothing.
No triumph. No satisfaction.
Just clarity. 6 months after my surgery, I stood in my mother's old kitchen. The house Daniel had tried to convince me to sell. Alvarez had ensured the title transfer was corrected. It was mine. Rachel leaned against the counter. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. He thought saving money mattered more than saving me. I looked around the room. He forgot I was the asset. Rachel smiled faintly. And now, I picked up my mother's letter from the table. The last line still echoed in my mind. If Daniel ever chooses money over family, let him live with the cost. I folded it carefully. He's living with it, I said. And for the first time since the hospital ceiling came into focus, I felt steady. Not because he lost everything, but because I didn't.